starting as early as being small girls, we are raised to believe that our sense of self-worth stems from us being helpful, being nurturing, and taking care of others. Okay. Which naturally, for many women, it is our strength, it is our quality without even trying to do anything special. That's what we have. By the way, that's also strength for many men. If they were not traumatized, again, developmental generational trauma for men, if they were not cut off of their emotions because somebody told them, don't cry, don't ask for help, just man up and do it by yourself and la 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 la. Lots of men would be having this quality naturally as well if they didn't suppress it in their childhood, yeah? But the generational trauma layer on top of it is that it draws it to extreme by telling us, by teaching us, unless you do it, unless you use and overextend your strength to an unhealthy limit, then you're not worthy of anything. Then shame on you, bad girl, because you're not taking care of me and you're not walking on eggshells and you're not fulfilling my every wish and need and you're not being helpful and you're saying no? How dare you? You always need to be helpful, always need to take care of others. If you don't, you're a selfish little whatever nasty word. That's what we are taught. I remember the day when we were on summer holidays. We spent a week with my grandparents, parents of my dad. And I remember my grandma asked me to come and help her in the kitchen to set up the table for dinner. And I felt so triggered. I felt it was not fair because my brother was allowed to keep playing. And my grandma was calling me. And she was telling me, like, come and set the table. And I got so mad. I was like, why he's not asked to come and set the table? I'm not a servant. And I said it with such an emotion. And my grandma, like, she was always, like, super nice. I loved her so much. I always felt safe with her until then. But I will never forget the look on her face. She got so mad. She didn't yell at me, but I could tell she got very mad, very triggered by that. Like, I'm not a servant. And then, well, she told me, like, I don't remember what happened then. She just told me I set up the table anyways because I saw how mad she got. So I played like, I played small. Then our parents came back on Friday evening. They came back from work. They arrived to the place to spend the weekend with us. This was the first thing my grandma told my parents, complaining about me. She told me she's not a maid, she's not a servant, and this is not acceptable, and I'm not happy with her, and like da-da-da-da-da. And so then my parents had another talk with me. And like, this was the last time ever, for decades, that I dared to protest that it's not fair that I have to do something, like take care of others, while it's okay for the guys not to do that. Okay. This is how we are taught. And this is why the generational developmental trauma is so dangerous, because it seems like nothing. Like, what are you complaining? They didn't yell at you. They didn't beat you up. Like, you had such an easy childhood. What are you here to complain as a victim? Like, come on, pick yourself up, be whatever. Don't be a complaining little wussy. Yeah? It's so easy to dismiss that. But this is exactly the danger of the developmental trauma. It's drip, drip, drip. Isolated like this, examples, stories, situations where seemingly nothing bad happened, but you chain them together, you link them together, and you check with yourself for the impact it had on you and your personality, your self-worth, your sense of your identity, who you are, what's your worth, why you're here to do, what you're here to do. It links up. It starts being tweaked. It starts being chipped. One by one little tiny episode like this after the other. Drip, 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 drip. And as a consequence, here you are listening to my podcast episode about your need to feel needed. This is how you got here. Does it make sense? So start fishing in your memory. Start fishing for all of those situations where you were taught you were told, directly or indirectly, what your place is. And when you are allowed to feel worthy and good about yourself, under what conditions. And when your wings were clipped, where your disagreement, your feeling of unfairness, when you naturally felt there was something off here, it was shut down. No discussion. Not acceptable. Not okay. This is not who we want you to be. You're not going to be loved. You're not going to be shown any appreciation if you keep running in this direction. This is not okay. This is how we are programmed. Culturally, by society, by our family, by the people we love and respect the most. This is how they slowly start doing that brainwashing massage. And so then you wake up 30, 40 years later and you realize, holy moly, not here to blame them for anything, but it makes perfect sense, right? And you see now, standing here today as an adult woman or a man, can you see the impact of it? Who would you be if you woke up one day and realized that nobody needs you? How would you feel? Did you just get like a uncomfortable feeling? How would that feel? Who would you be? Could you still feel good about yourself? Would you still feel like a good person? Even if nobody needed you? Even if nobody needed your help? Because this is how deep it goes. And if you participated, if you attended one of my Mommy Tantrum trainings where I explain this is how it links with that childhood trauma, I gave you heads up already at the beginning of this podcast episode. Because it is a childhood trauma symptom. It is. Trauma, as I explain on that training, we can give you links so that you can register and go through the whole thing, my whole rara explanation there from A to Z. But just a quick one recap here. Trauma is not just the shock that happened to you. Shock, like too intense, too heavy things happening too fast without you having no control over it, and then having PTSD flashbacks for the rest of your life, like sexual abuse, rape, death, like witnessing death or somebody close from you dying too early. Like those are shock traumas. It's heavy stuff, usually a one-off situation, or it might be, if it was a perpetual abuse, then there were a series of shock events. That's why, most likely you had PTSD. This is shock trauma. This is what I grew up thinking. That's what trauma is. And therefore, I don't have any trauma because I grew up in a perfect family, happy, sunny, shiny, unicorns, rainbows. Perfectly imperfect. Just my mom yelled at me, but whose mom doesn't, right? What I learned in my training throughout my professional career track, I learned that trauma is not just a shock. It's a continuum. On the other side of it is developmental trauma, which is the exact opposite, Shock trauma, too much, too fast. Developmental trauma is too little for too long. Too little of unconditional love, too little of feeling worthy, feeling heard and seen, feeling safe to be who you are, the way you are, not having to change. That's a developmental trauma.